Alright, so here we are for another episode of RC Pit Stop, and as you can see I have my A-Arma Nero here. We're rocking some new wheels and tyres. These are straight out of my BES from Team Magic. They look fantastic, and they do provide some decent grip for some stock tyres, so I kind of put them on here. They look a little bit bigger as well, and it just offers a different look to the truck. So as you may know, I had a massive accident with this truck probably a couple of months ago now. Of course, it depends on when you're watching this video. It could be 6 months ago, but it had a huge accident. I took a bit of a jump, and well, it was a bit unfortunate. I zigged instead of zagged, and it landed upside down from very high up altitude, and caused some major damage. I bent my chassis. I kind of damaged my motor as well. This is the original motor that came with it. I've kind of fixed it up a little bit, but basically the can kind of split from the actual motor itself. I broke a bunch of parts. To give you an idea of how many parts I broke, this is the front bulkhead, and you'll see here some extensive damage to these holes. There was one that was kind of broken on this side as well, so this guy needed to get replaced. What else did I replace? I believe, well, I replaced my front bumper as well, because this one had broken off, and it was really this bit here that actually broke off. Kind of stripped the screw straight out of that. This one here, this is one of the skid plates. I think this was the front one. Yeah, one of the front skid plates. So you can see here the damage from one of the screws that kind of broke off there. So yeah, quite a number of parts. I replaced a bunch of other parts as well, because when you buy some of these things, you end up with spares. So I replaced a few other parts that were showing a bit of wear, nothing that was really broken. This is an ESC mount, and yeah, underside skid plate again. This is kind of like behind the front bumper. This one's brand new. There was nothing wrong with the original one, so I kind of left it in there. Plus, you don't really see it. This is a shock rod end. It kind of bent. I don't know. It got damaged there. So I replaced this guy. This was the rod end on the counterlevers, basically the rods that go to the counterlevers. I stripped a couple of those little plastic rod ends, and this was one that I kind of made. So it was actually a little bit longer than this. I cut it down and I made it fit, but it was rubbing a little bit on the A-arm, so I replaced it even though there was nothing wrong with it. And that's basically it. I've got a pile of parts here that I replaced. I basically ended up pulling the entire truck apart and putting it all back together. I straightened out my chassis plates as best as I could. They're not 100%, but they're very close to 100%. I think I did a pretty good job of straightening them out. It does take a bit of effort to straighten them, which means that it also took a bit of effort to bend them. So it must have been a really big impact. And you know, a lot of people don't really realize how heavy this truck is. It has got some heft to it. And you know, when things go wrong, there's a lot of mass, there's a lot of force really on these plastic parts and aluminium parts, and unfortunately, you know, things will break. Now, what we are here to do today though, is we're going to be putting on some upgrades. We're going to be putting on some changes to this truck, because whilst I was kind of waiting for parts to turn up, and I was going to you know, put it all back together, T-Bone Racing actually contacted me and said, hey, do you want to try out some of our parts on your Nero? And I said, yeah, sure, you know, why not? I'll give them a go. I've never had anything from T-Bone before. I've heard a lot of people speak very highly of them. So this is going to be a very interesting thing for me, because I want to see just, you know, how good these parts actually are, given that they've been hyped up quite a bit. So what we have today for the Nero, we have the front bumper. This is the front bumper here. I've kind of already opened it and had a little bit of a look at how it all goes together. So that is going to go on this truck. I don't know if I can keep the original bumper on there or not. I'll have to have a look. We've got the wheelie bar. Now this is a version 2 wheelie bar, and this thing's massive. I mean, if I can get the wheel part of it out of here. Hang on, here we go. So that's kind of like, it's going to be pretty stable, I would say, when it does pop wheelies. And then you've got some other components in here that kind of all go together. and yeah, that sort of goes like that, and yeah, I'll figure it out. Well, I kind of had to figure it out because one of the things that did annoy me a little bit about all these parts that come supplied, these are the front skid plates. These go on the A-arms, so these are the front skid plates, and then we've got the rear skid plates as well. So that's them there. I haven't opened this packet yet. Now, one of the things that was a little bit annoying about all this stuff from T-Bone is that there's no instructions in here on how you actually assemble them. Because the skid plates, for example, which look like this, and then they have this funny little component in there as well, which is this guy. I was thinking, my God, where does this go? And I wasn't quite sure how all of this worked. So I ended up going onto their website, and they've got pictures of all this stuff kind of installed, and then you can sort of go, oh, okay, you know, I figure it out. That's how it goes. But it would be nice to have, you know, I mean, they supply a little kind of leaflet in here, giving you some installation instructions and so forth, and some warranty details. It would be nice if they put a little picture or a little leaflet just to show you how all these parts go together, if it's not straightforward. Because the front bumper, I sort of figured it out on my own. The rear wheelie bar was actually really tricky. I had to go online as well and work out how that went together. But this one here was actually the worst, because this is, yeah, really weird looking design. I don't know, maybe it's just me. Maybe I don't have all my brain cells ticking today, but that's just how I came across it. I figured I'll just point that out, because you will probably need to go online and have a look at how all this stuff gets installed. Have a look at the pictures that they have there of the finished product, and that'll give you some idea of how it all goes together. All right, enough talking. I'm going to take the body off here, and I'm going to get to work, because I want to see all these bumpers and wheelie bars and plates and all that installed on the truck. So I'll come back shortly and show you my progress. All right, so my rear wheelie bar is on. You can see how it's mounted on there. It goes right through the existing bumper of the Nero, and then it bolts on underneath with those two screws just there. The bar itself is actually quite thick and quite beefy. The wheels are solid, rubbery. They feel very strong, look as though they might last quite a bit. And then you can see here that there's actually 3 positions where you can mount the wheelie bar, so you can have it way up high, so you can do some really big wheelies, almost have the car vertical, and then you can have them down quite a bit lower, so it doesn't raise the front end all that much, but it doesn't sit too close to the ground still, so you still be able to kind of pop wheelies on it, probably ideal for speed runs or something like that. I've gone for the middle position. I kind of like that position. It's not too high, not too low, and it still allows me to kind of pop you know, some decent wheelies on there and keep the truck upright, which is what it's all about at the end of the day. Now, the 2 screws that are here, they actually go through the front, the actual spring part of the bumper, which is this part here that bolts onto the to the truck itself. So there's 2 screws that you need to remove. So you remove the existing screws that are there, and then you replace them with the screws that T-Bone Racing provide in the bag. And then it feeds through the actual bumper, bolt on underneath, and hey presto, you're pretty much good to go. Now there are some extra screws in the bag. I don't know what these are for, but you know, good to have always spare screws lying around, because really there's nowhere else for me to put these. So hopefully I'm not missing something, but yeah, that's pretty much how it all goes together. Now I'm going to move on to the skid plates on the A-arms, and then I'll show you how the process of that went, and then we'll finish this off with the front bumper. Okay, so as you can see, I've got my front skid plates on, and I have one of my rear skid plates on. Putting these skid plates on, I have to say, you are going to need a lot of patience and a little bit of luck. Because you're kind of doing this blindly. And what I mean by that is, I'm going to try and demonstrate to you here how you actually put on this skid plate. So the way that this works is you kind of have to have this piece basically just positioned on this plate, and then when you feed this through the A-arm, you then have to kind of screw this whole thing together, and there's no way that you can actually see if you're lining up the screws correctly. It's very, very difficult. So you need a little bit of patience, you need some persistence to get the holes to line up and make everything fit. The front one was a little bit easier because this little piece was kind of already attached to this piece, and it was acting like a kind of like a spacer, like a filler, and then you just had to kind of put your screw. There was 3 screws, as you can see here. There's 3 screws, and they go here, here, and here. All right, if I can show you that again, there, and there, and the space is kind of in between, and it's kind of locked into the holes of the A-arm. So if I flip this around, you can see that the A-arms are full of holes. So this kind of goes in there, sort of thing, to hold the piece in position. All right, so it kind of goes in there. So it's quite a tricky thing to do to fit on these skid plates, and without any sort of physical instructions on how to do it, what's the best way to go about it, you have to kind of work this out yourself, and it gets a little bit frustrating. I have to admit, these the front 2 were a little bit easier, but this rear one that I've put on has really taken up some time. So I'm going to go ahead now and try to fit the last one, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the front bumper. Okay, I'm done. So let me show you the front bumper here very quickly. This was actually one of the easiest ones to put together because you only have 4 screws that you got to worry about. The bumper itself comes already all together. You just have to remove these 2 screws here. There's 2 existing screws here. You put on, replace the stock screws with the longer ones that they provide in the bag. And then there's also some aluminium spacers that they put there that you can see there, where they give you some longer screws, and then you can just bolt them straight on, and the plastic kind of bends down a little bit, gives it a really nice smooth finish. So really well done on T-Bone for that idea. I like that. I think that looks really, really nice, and hopefully it'll hold up, because the plastic that they give you is actually quite thick. It's really beefed up. And now, as I said, the skid plates are a little bit tricky to put on, but I find that having the truck on its side is probably the easiest way to do it. Aside from that, you just have to have a bit of patience, line up your screws, and away you go. The wheelie bar looks fantastic. I was actually a bit worried it was going to be a bit too big for the truck, but to be honest, it actually doesn't look bad at all. I don't mind that the size of the wheelie bar. Now, the only thing I would recommend T-Bone do in future is just provide some washers for these nuts here, because I found that as I was tightening on these screws, the nuts were kind of digging into the plastic, and I didn't like that. So I found some washers and put them on there, and I was able to tighten this on really nice and firm, because originally I did have a little bit of movement in the wheelie bar, purely because I wasn't tightening it enough, because the screws were sort of digging into the plastic. So that's something that I think T-Bone can definitely include in the package. One other thing that I'm going to criticize them on is just the front bumper, and it's really just its size. I don't think it really needs to be this big, and I think honestly it needs to be a little bit smaller, and I'm going to explain to you why. Because when you have your wheels turned, as we know, tyres do balloon. These rubber tyres, especially if you're using Proline tyres like your Big Joes or your Trenches, they will balloon and expand, and I can see that there's not a lot of clearance here, and the tyres are probably going to be hitting this bumper on the corner. So perhaps a smaller bumper, or maybe something that sort of extends out just a little bit more, that might help, but I don't really see a need to have something this gigantic on the front. Sure, it'll offer you a lot of protection, there's no doubt about that, but I do worry that maybe these tyres are going to rub on the corners of the bumper here, especially if you have your wheels turned. That's just my theory. I mean, especially on the front, you always get power bleeding out to the front, and that's where it's most likely going to happen. So aside from that, I'm actually pretty impressed with the overall result. Although the skid plates did take a little bit of time to put on and were a little bit tricky, front and rear, the front bumper and the rear wheelie bar, very easy to do. I just wish that there were some instructions, just so that I didn't have to constantly be on the website looking at how everything sort of went together. Because luckily they have some nice pictures there for you to sort of, work out how it all goes together. So I'm going to put the body on now, which is a new body that I got for my Nero, which is the green one. So hopefully I'll be able to get out there and do a running video with this guy very soon, put these plastic components to the test, and just see how they hold up. Now, as always, don't forget to check out the video description. I'll have links in there to T-Bone Racing. I'll also put the model numbers and part numbers for all the upgrades that I've put on my Nero at the moment. So if you want to go check that out, and if you want to go grab some of yourself, I do believe they are very reasonably priced. I have checked out some of the prices there, and they seem to be very well priced. And from what I've heard from people that have had T-Bone products in the past, extremely happy with them. So Aside from the fact that, you know, perhaps they could have made this a little bit smaller and maybe included some washers for the rear bumper and some instructions would be nice as well. I have to say I'm actually really impressed with the products and the quality, the plastics, the thickness of them. It just looks really built to take a beating. And if you are one of these people that really likes to beat on the RCs, I strongly recommend you go check out T-Bone Racing, because I'm sure they'll have something there for your car, because they have products for a variety of different brands and a variety of different RCs out there on the market. So that's it for this episode of RC Pit Stop. If you like this video, please be sure to give the video a like. Don't forget to subscribe if you're new here, and leave a comment down below. Let me know what your experience has been with T-Bone Racing, and you know, perhaps we can pass this on to T-Bone as well and give them some feedback. That's it from me. Thank you for watching, and I'll speak to you next time.